The first time Marcus Chun saw the Kithrin hunting pack, he was bleeding out in a crashed escape pod on Kepler 442b, watching his crewmates get torn apart through the cracked viewport. The creatures moved like liquid shadow across the alien forest floor, each one the size of a small shuttle, with 6 legs that ended in razor-sharp talons and jaws that could snap a human in half. Marcus had been the communications officer aboard the merchant vessel Prosperity's Edge when pirates hit them 3 days out from the Centauri trade routes. The crew had managed to get to the escape pods, but something had gone wrong with his navigation system. Instead of landing on the designated safe world, he'd crashed on this unmarked planet in the Outer Rim. Now he watched through the blood-streaked glass as the pack leader, a massive creature with midnight blue fur streaked with silver, approached the wreckage where his friend Rodriguez had been thrown clear. Rodriguez was still alive, trying to crawl away with a broken leg. The creature sniffed the air, its 4 eyes focusing on the wounded human with predatory intelligence. Marcus knew he should stay hidden. His pod's emergency beacon was broken, and he had maybe 6 hours before blood loss took him. The smart thing would be to stay quiet, let the creatures finish their hunt, and hope they moved on before he died. But Rodriguez had a wife, kids, pictures of them tucked into his uniform pocket. The creature raised its massive paw, claws extended. "Hey!" Marcus kicked open the pod's damaged hatch, stumbling out into the alien twilight. "Hey, you ugly piece of..." The pack leader's head snapped toward him, all 4 eyes narrowing. Its lips pulled back, revealing teeth like curved daggers. The other pack members, 5 smaller adults, turned as well. Marcus could see now that 2 of them were protecting something behind them. Cubs, maybe. Young ones. The pack leader made a sound like grinding metal mixed with a whale song. It was clearly some kind of communication, because the others responded in kind. Then, it began moving toward Marcus with deliberate, measured steps. Marcus grabbed a piece of twisted metal from his pod's wreckage. It wasn't much of a weapon, but it was better than nothing. His left leg was definitely broken, and he could feel the warm stickiness of blood running down his side where something sharp had caught him during the crash. "Come on then," he muttered, raising the improvised weapon. "Let's get this over with." The creature paused about 10 feet away, tilting its massive head. Those 4 eyes studied him with uncomfortable intelligence. It made another sound, softer this time, almost questioning. When Marcus didn't lower his weapon, the creature's posture changed. Its shoulders dropped slightly, and it took a step back. That's when Marcus realized something that chilled him more than the approaching predator. These weren't just animals. They were thinking, planning, communicating. And right now, they were trying to figure out what this strange, bleeding creature was willing to fight for. The pack leader made a decision. Instead of attacking Marcus directly, it turned back toward Rodriguez, who had managed to drag himself another few meters but was clearly exhausted. The message was clear: stop interfering or watch your friend die slowly. Marcus started forward, his broken leg sending spikes of agony up his spine with each step. I said no. The creature whirled, faster than something that size should be able to move. One massive paw swept out, catching Marcus across the chest and sending him flying backward into a cluster of purple trees that looked like enormous ferns. The impact drove the air from his lungs and sent stars dancing across his vision. But he got back up. The pack leader's 4 eyes widened slightly. It made another grinding wail sound, this one with a different tone. The other pack members responded, and Marcus could hear what sounded almost like argument in their alien voices. He limped forward again, still gripping his pathetic metal weapon. "Rodriguez, you still with me?" "Marcus." His friend's voice was weak, but alert. "What the hell are you doing? Just hide." "Can't do that, buddy." Marcus kept his eyes on the pack leader, which had moved to block his path. "Remember what you told me about your daughter's recital? How you promised you'd be there for the next one?" The creature struck again, this time more carefully. A precisely controlled swipe that knocked Marcus down, but didn't send him flying. It stood over him, jaws open wide enough to encompass his entire head, and made that grinding sound again. Marcus looked up into those 4 alien eyes and saw something he hadn't expected. Confusion, maybe even a grudging respect. Yeah, he said, struggling to his feet again. I'm getting back up. Every time. That's what we do. This time, when he moved toward Rodriguez, the pack leader didn't immediately attack. Instead, it paralleled his movement, staying between Marcus and the rest of the pack. The other adults were making agitated sounds now, clearly wanting to finish their hunt and move on. Marcus reached Rodriguez and helped him sit up against a tree. His friend was in bad shape, but alert. You're completely insane, Rodriguez whispered. Probably. Marcus kept his eyes on the pack leader, which had settled onto its haunches about 8 feet away, watching them. But I think they're starting to understand something about us. The pack leader made a new sound then, one that was somehow both questioning and commanding. The other adults responded immediately, but not with agreement. If Marcus had to guess, he'd say there was an argument happening. The pack wanted to finish the hunt and leave. But their leader was curious about these strange creatures that wouldn't stop fighting, even when beaten. As if to test this theory, one of the younger adults broke away from the group and charged toward them. The pack leader's roar was like thunder mixed with breaking glass. The younger creature skidded to a halt, then slunk back to the group, clearly chastened. Did that thing just protect us? Rodriguez asked weakly. Marcus wasn't sure, but he was starting to form a theory. These weren't just predators. They were intelligent, social creatures with their own codes of behavior. And somehow his refusal to abandon Rodriguez had triggered something in their pack leader's mind. The creature stood up and approached slowly, its movements now deliberate and non-threatening. It stopped just out of reach and made a soft, almost musical sound. Then it did something that made Marcus's heart skip a beat. It lowered its massive head in what looked unmistakably like a nod of acknowledgement. Marcus, Rodriguez whispered, I think you just made friends with an alien predator. The pack leader made another sound, this one clearly directed at its pack. The response was immediate. The other adults began moving away, but not in retreat. They were repositioning, spreading out in a defensive pattern around the area where Marcus and Rodriguez sat. As the alien sun set behind the purple forest canopy, Marcus realized that something unprecedented had just happened. The pack wasn't leaving. They weren't attacking. They were standing guard. The pack leader settled down nearby, close enough to watch, but far enough to give a human space. Its 4 eyes remained alert, scanning the darkening forest for other threats. What do you think they're protecting us from? Rodriguez asked. Before Marcus could answer, a howl echoed through the forest, different from the sounds the pack made. Wilder, more savage. The pack leader's head snapped up, and it made a low, warning growl. The other pack members tightened their defensive circle. I don't think we're the only predators on this planet, Marcus said quietly. The pack leader looked back at them, and in those 4 alien eyes, Marcus saw something that would stay with him for the rest of his life. Recognition, not just of intelligence, but of courage, of the willingness to stand and fight for someone else, even when defeat was certain. In the growing darkness, surrounded by alien predators who had chosen to protect rather than hunt, Marcus began to understand that first contact with intelligent alien life might not happen the way humanity had always imagined. Sometimes, it didn't require words or technology or formal protocols. Sometimes, all it required was showing who you really were when everything was on the line. The howls were getting closer. The things that came out of the forest 3 hours after sunset were nothing like the pack that had chosen to protect Marcus and Rodriguez. Where the Kitharans moved with grace and intelligence, these new creatures were pure savage hunger. They looked like enormous spiders crossed with wolves, each one nearly twice the size of the pack members, with too many legs and eyes that glowed sickly yellow in the darkness. Marcus counted at least 8 of them creeping through the purple undergrowth, their movements erratic and predatory. They made wet, chittering sounds that set his teeth on edge. The pack leader rose silently to its feet, and the change in its demeanor was immediate. Gone was the curious, almost gentle creature that had been watching over them. This was an apex predator preparing for war. Its 4 eyes blazed with cold fury, and when it made its grinding wail call, the sound was sharp with command. The 5 pack members responded instantly, flowing into a battle formation that spoke of years of hunting together. But Marcus noticed something that made his stomach drop. 2 of the pack members were smaller, younger, and behind them, partially hidden by the defensive circle, he caught a glimpse of what they'd been protecting all along. Cubs. 3 of them, each no bigger than a house cat, their fur still downy and their eyes wide with fear. "They're not just protecting us," Marcus whispered to Rodriguez. "They've got babies." The spider wolves had caught their scent now. They began spreading out, trying to encircle the small group. Their chittering grew louder, more excited. Marcus could see intelligence in their movements too, but it was a cold, calculating kind of intelligence. The intelligence of things that enjoyed the fear of their prey. The pack leader made a different sound now, one that Marcus somehow understood without translation. It was looking at him, and the meaning was clear. "Stay down, protect your wounded. Let's handle this." But when the first spider wolf charged from the left flank, going straight for one of the cubs, Marcus couldn't just watch. He grabbed his piece of twisted metal and threw himself forward, managing to crack the creature across one of its bulbous eyes. The thing shrieked and stumbled, giving the pack member time to intercept it. The pack leader's roar of surprise was almost human in its emotional content. But there was no time for communication now. The spider wolves were attacking from all sides. What followed was the most terrifying and awe-inspiring battle Marcus had ever witnessed. The Kithrans fought like water given deadly form, flowing around their enemies' attacks and striking with surgical precision. Their claws could slice through the spider wolves' chitinous armor, and their massive jaws could crush limbs with a single bite. But they were outnumbered, and they were trying to protect too many vulnerable targets. Marcus saw one of the younger pack members take a spider wolf's venomous bite to the shoulder and stumble. Another spider wolf immediately moved to exploit the weakness. Marcus didn't think. He just moved. Using a broken tree branch as a spear, he drove the sharp end into the spider wolf's exposed belly as it reared up to strike the wounded Kithran. The creature's shriek was like nails on glass, but it worked. The pack member rolled away and rejoined the fight. The battle lasted maybe 10 minutes, but it felt like hours. When it was over, 3 spider wolves lay dead, and the rest had fled into the darkness. The pack was wounded but intact, and Marcus found himself sitting on the forest floor, shaking from adrenaline and blood loss. The pack leader approached him slowly, its 4 eyes fixed on his face. It was bleeding from several wounds, but it moved with purpose. When it reached Marcus, it did something completely unexpected. It gently pressed its massive head against Marcus's shoulder, making a sound like a deep, rumbling purr. "I think," Rodriguez said weakly, "you just got adopted." Over the next few days, as they waited for rescue that might never come, Marcus learned to communicate with the pack through gestures and simple sounds. The pack leader, which Marcus had started thinking of as Alpha, seemed particularly interested in teaching him their ways. Alpha showed him which plants were safe to eat, which water sources were clean, and how to move quietly through the forest. In return, Marcus demonstrated human problem-solving techniques, like using leverage to move heavy rocks and creating simple tools from salvaged materials. But it was with the cubs that Marcus truly began to understand the depth of Kithran's social structure. The 3 youngsters, barely old enough to be away from a den, had clearly been orphaned. The pack had taken them in, but they needed more care than the adults could provide while hunting and protecting territory. Marcus found himself becoming a surrogate caretaker. His smaller size made it easier for him to reach into tight spaces where the cubs liked to hide. His human hands were perfect for the delicate grooming that young Kithrans needed, and his willingness to play with them, even while injured, seemed to delight the cubs endlessly. It was during one of these play sessions that Alpha made a sound Marcus had never heard before. It was complex with multiple tones and what sounded like deliberate meaning. Alpha repeated it several times, pointing at Marcus with one massive claw. "I think it just named you," Rodriguez observed. He was recovering well, thanks to the pack's knowledge of medicinal plants. The other pack members began using the sound too, always when referring to Marcus. But it was the cubs who taught him what it meant. During a particularly energetic play session, one of the cubs had gotten stuck under a fallen log. When Marcus lifted the heavy wood with a lever he'd made from a ship's beam, freeing the frightened cub, Alpha made that special sound again. But this time, one of the cubs tried to repeat it. The young voice couldn't manage the complex harmonics, but Marcus caught the simplified version. It sounded almost like Uncle Death. Uncle Death. At first, Marcus was horrified. Why would they name him after death? But as he watched the cubs play around him, completely unafraid, he began to understand. To the pack, he wasn't Uncle Death because he brought death. He was Uncle Death because death couldn't touch him. No matter how many times he got knocked down, no matter how badly he was hurt, he kept getting back up. To the Kithrans, that kind of persistence in the face of destruction was worthy of respect. And in their complex social structure, someone who would risk death to protect the young earned a very specific kind of status. Alpha confirmed this understanding on their 5th day together. The pack had been teaching Marcus to hunt, working together to bring down one of the local deer-like creatures. During the hunt, Marcus had fallen into a concealed pit trap left by some other predator. The fall had re-injured his leg and left him stuck at the bottom of a 12-foot hole. Instead of leaving him or trying to extract him themselves, Alpha had done something remarkable. It had left one pack member to guard the cubs, and Marcus then led the others away. When they returned an hour later, they brought help. A human search and rescue team drawn by the pack's coordinated calls for attention. As the rescue team's medic worked on Marcus's injuries, preparing him for transport, Alpha approached one final time. The massive creature looked into Marcus's eyes and made a series of complex sounds. Then, it touched one claw gently to Marcus's chest, right over his heart. The message was clear. You're a pack now. Family. And family always comes home. Sir, the rescue team leader said, we need to go. This planet isn't safe for extended ground operations. Marcus looked back at the cubs, who were watching from a safe distance. They looked so small, so vulnerable. What about them? Sir, they're just animals. We can't. Alpha's growl cut him off. The pack leader stepped protectively in front of the cubs, but its 4 eyes never left Marcus. There was understanding there. And trust. They're not just animals, Marcus said quietly. They're people. Different people, but people all the same. As the rescue ship lifted off, carrying Marcus and Rodriguez back to human space, Marcus pressed his face to the porthole and watched the pack disappear into the purple forest below. He had no way of knowing if he'd ever see them again. But he carried Alpha's final sound with him, the complex harmony that meant both goodbye and promise. In the Kithran language, he would later learn there was no difference between the two concepts. Goodbye was always a promise to return. 2 years after his rescue from Kepler, 442b, Marcus Chin stood before the United Earth Xenobiology Council, delivering what would become known as the Kithra Report. His presentation had already revolutionized humanity's understanding of alien intelligence. But today's session was different. Today, he was requesting something unprecedented. Council members, Marcus began, his voice steady despite the magnitude of what he was about to propose. I'm here to request permission for humanity's first formal diplomatic mission to an alien species. Not through our traditional channels of radio communication or mathematical proofs, but through direct cultural exchange. Council Chairman Dr. Sarah Okafor leaned forward in her seat. Mr. Chun, while your experiences on Kepler 442b were remarkable, we still have no confirmation that these creatures possess technology or civilization as we understand it. With respect, Chairwoman, that's exactly the kind of thinking that will prevent us from understanding them. Marcus activated his holographic display, showing the detailed behavioral analysis he'd compiled over 2 years of study. The Kithrans don't build cities or spaceships because they don't need to. They've achieved something we haven't. Perfect harmony with their environment while maintaining complex social structures. The presentation continued for 3 hours, covering everything from Kithran pack dynamics to their sophisticated communication system. Marcus had spent months working with xenolinguists, translating the sounds and gestures he'd learned into something approaching a basic dictionary. But it was his final proposal that stunned the council into silence. "I want to go back," Marcus said simply. "Not as a castaway, but as an ambassador. To live with them, learn from them, and establish formal relations between our species." Council member Dr. James Wright spoke up. "Mr. Chun, you're talking about living permanently among predators that could kill you without effort. The psychological evaluation shows that I'm the sanest I've ever been," Marcus interrupted. "Those predators saved my life and taught me what it means to be part of a real community. While we've been arguing about whether they qualify as intelligent, they've been building something we've forgotten how to build, a society based on mutual protection and shared responsibility." The debate that followed was fierce. Some council members saw Marcus as suffering from a form of Stockholm Syndrome. Others worried about the precedent of sending human diplomats to live among dangerous alien species. But there were also those who recognized the unprecedented opportunity. Dr. Elena Vasquez, the council's chief xenobiologist, finally broke the deadlock. "Mr. Chun, you mentioned that the pack leader gave you a name. What exactly does Uncle Death mean in their culture?" Marcus smiled for the first time during the presentation. "It means I'm family. In Kithrin society, uncles have specific responsibilities. They teach the young, protect the pack, and serve as bridges between different groups. Alpha didn't just name me. He gave me a role, a purpose within their social structure. And you believe this gives you diplomatic standing with them? I believe it makes me the only human they've ever trusted enough to consider pack family. If we're going to establish relations with any alien species, starting with trust seems like a good foundation." The council voted to approve a limited mission. Marcus would return to Kepler 442b with a small support team, establish a research station, and attempt to formalize contact with the Kithrin packs. The mission was classified at the highest levels, and if it went wrong, Earth would disavow any knowledge of it. 6 months later, Marcus stepped out of the landing shuttle onto the purple grass of Kepler 442b for the second time. With him came Dr. Rodriguez, who had insisted on returning despite his wife's protests, and a small team of xenobiologists, linguists, and survival experts. They set up their base camp 3 kilometers from where Marcus's escape pod had crashed, in a clearing that provided good visibility, but wasn't encroaching on any territorial boundaries. The plan was simple: make their presence known, wait for contact, and see what happened. They didn't have to wait long. On their 3rd day, Marcus woke to find massive paw prints surrounding their camp. The tracks were fresh, made sometime during the night, and they formed a perfect circle around the human settlement. It was clearly a message: "We know you're here." That afternoon, while Marcus was collecting water from a nearby stream, he heard a sound that made his heart race. The complex harmony that meant his name in Kithrin language carried on the wind from somewhere in the forest. Uncle Death. He followed the sound, leaving his communicator on so the team could track him, but otherwise going alone. Half a kilometer into the forest, he found them waiting in a clearing. Alpha sat in the center, now showing signs of age, but still magnificent. Around him were 4 pack members Marcus didn't recognize, younger adults who watched the human with cautious curiosity. But it was the 3 cubs, now grown into adolescence, that made Marcus's vision blur with unexpected emotion. They were all there, healthy and strong, and they remembered him. Their excited vocalizations filled the clearing as they bounded forward, careful not to knock him down, but clearly overjoyed at his return. Alpha rose slowly and approached. The pack leader was older, his midnight blue fur now heavily streaked with silver, but his 4 eyes were as intelligent as ever. When he reached Marcus, Alpha did something that stunned the watching pack. He lowered his massive head and gently touched his forehead to Marcus's, making the deep rumbling sound that meant welcome home. The formal reunion took hours. Marcus reintroduced himself to the pack using the ritual gestures he'd learned, presented gifts of carefully selected Earth items, and slowly explained his return through a combination of words and actions. The new pack members were wary at first, but Alpha's acceptance of a human was absolute. It was one of the now-grown cubs, the smallest one who had always been Marcus's favorite, who provided the breakthrough. She approached Marcus and made a series of complex sounds, then looked expectantly at his response. Marcus realized she was asking about the other humans, the ones whose scent and sounds were carried on his clothing and equipment. She wanted to know if Uncle Death had brought his own pack. Yes, he said carefully, in the simplified Kithrin he'd developed. My pack is here. They want to meet you. The conversation that followed was the first formal diplomatic negotiation between humanity and an alien species, conducted in a forest clearing with hand gestures, simple words, and an enormous amount of mutual trust. Alpha was interested in meeting the other humans, but cautious. His pack had expanded since Marcus left, taking in orphans from 3 other groups. He now led 17 individuals, including 6 juveniles, and his primary concern was their safety. Marcus explained that his people were curious, but peaceful, that they wanted to learn and share knowledge. Alpha listened carefully, then made a decision that would change both species forever. He would meet with the human pack, but on neutral ground and with specific protocols to ensure no one felt threatened. The first formal contact between the Kithrin pack and the human research team took place 5 days later in a meadow halfway between their respective camps. The humans sat on one side of a large fallen log, the Kithrins on the other, with Marcus in the middle serving as translator and mediator. Dr. Rodriguez, despite his scientific training, couldn't stop staring at Alpha's massive form. My God, he whispered. He's even bigger than I remembered. Alpha's head tilted slightly, and Marcus realized the pack leader had understood the basic meaning, if not the exact words. Kithrins, it seemed, were naturally gifted at reading emotional context. He wants to know if you're the injured one he remembers. Marcus translated as Alpha made a questioning sound. He's concerned about your leg. The ice was broken when Dr. Elena Vasquez, the xenobiologist who had supported the mission, offered Alpha a small piece of chocolate from a ration pack. The pack leader sniffed it carefully, took a tiny taste, and made a sound that was unmistakably appreciation. Within hours, the 2 groups had established basic communication protocols. The Kithrins were fascinated by human technology, particularly the portable computers and medical scanners. The humans were amazed by the pack's sophisticated understanding of their environment and their complex social behaviors. But it was the juveniles who truly bridged the gap between species. Young Kithrins, it turned out, were just as curious and playful as human children. Soon the younger pack members were investigating the humans' equipment, while the research team's junior members were learning to play Kithrin games that involved complex patterns of movement and sound. As the sun set on that first day of formal contact, Alpha approached Marcus one final time. The pack leader looked at the mixed group of humans and Kithrins, all working together to prepare the evening meal, and made a sound of deep satisfaction. He says, Marcus translated for his human colleagues, that Uncle Death has brought his pack home where they belong. Dr. Rodriguez smiled, watching his own children's fascination with the alien cubs on the video call he was making to Earth. I think he's right. I think we're all exactly where we belong. That night, for the first time in either species' history, humans and aliens slept in the same camp, protected by the same guards, sharing the same fire. It was the beginning of something unprecedented in the galaxy. It was the beginning of true interspecies family. 5 years after first contact, the Chinalpha research station had become something unique in the galaxy, the first truly integrated human-alien community. What had started as a simple diplomatic mission had evolved into a thriving settlement where 2 species lived, worked, and learned together as equals. Marcus stood on the observation deck of the station's main building, watching human children and Kithrin cubs play together in the courtyard below. His daughter Sarah, now 4 years old, was teaching a young Kithrin named Whisper how to use finger paints, while Whisper was showing Sarah how to make the complex harmonic sounds that meant friendship in pack language. Still can't believe this is real sometimes, said Dr. Emily Chun, Marcus's wife, as she joined him at the window. Emily had been part of the second wave of colonists, arriving as the mission's chief medical officer and staying to become the first human to master Kithran healing techniques. Alpha says the same thing, Marcus replied, pointing to where the elderly pack leader was carefully supervising the youngsters. He told me yesterday that his grandfather's grandfather would never have believed that apex predators could raise cubs together in peace. The station now housed 47 humans and 63 Kithrans, forming 3 integrated packs that shared resources, responsibilities, and knowledge. The arrangement had required new social structures that borrowed from both cultures, creating something unprecedented. Human expertise in technology and agriculture combined with Kithran environmental knowledge and social organization had created a settlement that was both advanced and sustainable. The humans had introduced concepts like renewable energy and advanced medicine, while the Kithrans had taught them about ecosystem management and conflict resolution through consensus. But their greatest achievement was the children. Sarah was part of the first generation of humans to grow up bilingual in human languages and Kithran pack speech. She and the other human children could navigate both social systems instinctively, serving as natural bridges between the species. The young Kithrans, meanwhile, had developed an unprecedented ability to work with tools and abstract concepts, skills that normally didn't emerge until much later in their development. Dr. Chun, came a voice from the station's communication center. We're receiving a priority transmission from Earth Command. Marcus sighed. Relations with Earth had become increasingly strained as the colony's success grew. What had started as a simple research mission had become something that challenged fundamental assumptions about human expansion and colonization. In the communication center, Admiral Sarah Morrison's hologram flickered to life. Her expression was grim, and Marcus immediately knew this wasn't a routine check-in. Dr. Chun, I'll be direct. The Colonial Expansion Committee has voted to reclassify Kepler 442b as a priority settlement world. A full colonization fleet is being prepared for launch within 6 months. Marcus felt his blood turn cold. Admiral, with respect, this world is already colonized. By the Kithrans. We're guests here. Dr. Chun, you've done remarkable work establishing relations with the local fauna, but ultimately this planet offers resources and strategic value that Earth desperately needs. The committee has decided that formal colonization should proceed. Your research station will be expanded into a full colonial administration center. They're not fauna, Admiral. They're people. They have cities, art, complex social structures. They have pack behaviors and territorial instincts, Admiral Morrison interrupted. Our xenobiologists have reviewed your reports. While impressive for animals, these behaviors don't constitute legal claim to planetary sovereignty under colonial law. Emily stepped forward, her face flushed with anger. Admiral, I've spent 3 years learning Kithran medicine. They have surgical techniques that make our methods look primitive. They've developed treatments for diseases we didn't even know existed. How can you call them animals? Dr. Chun, I understand your emotional attachment to these creatures, but Earth's needs must take priority. The colonization fleet will include full terraforming equipment and military support. We recommend that your research team relocate the native populations to designated reserves before the main settlement begins. Reserves. Marcus felt sick. Admiral, you're talking about concentration camps for an intelligent species. I'm talking about practical management of indigenous populations during colonial expansion. It's been done successfully on 17 worlds. The natives will be protected and cared for, while human settlement proceeds in designated areas. The transmission ended, leaving Marcus and Emily staring at the empty hologram projector. Through the window, they could see their daughters still playing with Whisper, both children laughing at some shared joke that crossed species lines. We have to warn them, Emily said quietly. Marcus was already moving toward the door. I need to talk to Alpha. He found the pack leader in the settlement's central grove, a natural amphitheater where the community held its daily consensus meetings. Alpha was listening to a report from one of the younger adults who had been scouting the northern territories. When Marcus approached, Alpha immediately sensed his distress. The pack leader's four eyes focused intently on the human's face, reading the emotional cues that Kithrans were so skilled at interpreting. "Bad news from Skypack," Alpha said, using the term the Kithrans had developed for Earth's government. His English had improved dramatically over the years, though he still preferred to communicate in the hybrid language they developed together. Marcus explained the situation as carefully as he could, translating human colonial concepts into terms the Kithran could understand. As he spoke, Alpha's posture gradually shifted from relaxed attention to rigid alarm. "Skypack wants all territory," Alpha said when Marcus finished. "Want pack lands for their cubs only." "Yes, and they want your people moved to small territories, away from the good hunting grounds and water sources." Alpha was silent for a long moment, his four eyes distant with thought. Finally, he made the complex harmonic sound that meant he was calling for a full pack gathering. Within an hour, every adult member of the three integrated packs had assembled in the grove. Marcus stood beside Alpha as the pack leader explained the situation in formal pack speech, his voice carrying the undertones that signified grave danger to the community. The response was immediate and unanimous. The Kithrans would not be relocated to reserves. This was their world, their territory, and they would defend it. But Alpha's next word surprised everyone, human and Kithran alike. "Uncle Death," he said, turning to Marcus. "Skypack is your blood pack. Your responsibility. You must choose." The grove fell silent. Every eye, human and alien, focused on Marcus as he realized what Alpha was asking. The pack leader wasn't just seeking his advice or support. In Kithran culture, when a pack faced existential threat from another's blood relations, the member with divided loyalty had to make a formal choice. Stay with the pack and fight against his own species if necessary, or leave and return to his blood family. "Alpha," Marcus said slowly, "my pack is here. My family is here. My cubs will grow up here. If Earth wants this world, they'll have to take it from all of us." The sound that rose from the assembled Kithrans was like nothing Marcus had ever heard. It was the harmonized roar of three packs accepting a human as full pack family, not just honorary member but true blood bond. But it was Emily who spoke the words that would define the coming conflict. "Earth isn't just threatening the Kithrans," she said, standing beside her husband. "They're threatening our children. Sarah and the other kids, this is their world too. This is where they belong." Dr. Rodriguez, now the settlement's senior researcher, nodded grimly. "Then we need to figure out how a research station and three packs of indigenous aliens are going to fight off a full Earth colonial fleet." Alpha made a sound that might have been Kithran laughter. "Earth Sky Pack thinks we are simple territory hunters. They do not know we have Uncle Death. They do not know we have learned sky hunting." Marcus looked at his pack brother with growing understanding. Over 5 years, the Kithrans hadn't just learned to live with human technology. They'd learned to use it, adapt it, improve it. The settlement's defensive systems, originally designed to protect against local predators, had been quietly enhanced with Kithran insights into tactics and strategy. "How long do we have?" Emily asked. 6 months, Marcus replied. "Maybe less if they decide to send an advance force." Alpha's 4 eyes gleamed with predatory intelligence. "Then, we prepare. Earth Sky Pack wants to see territory hunters. We show them what pack hunters can do when protecting cubs." As the gathering dispersed to begin preparations, Marcus realized that Earth was about to face something it had never encountered before, an alien species that had learned human technology while retaining their own superior understanding of cooperation, strategy, and determination. The coming conflict wouldn't just be about territory or resources. It would be about whether humanity could learn to share the galaxy, or whether they would repeat the same mistakes that had plagued their own world. In the distance, human and Kithran children continued playing together, unaware that they had become the most important thing in 2 worlds worth fighting for. The Earth colonial fleet arrived 6 months later to find something they had never expected, a united front. Admiral Catherine Wells commanded the largest colonial expedition in human history. 12 massive ships carrying 10,000 colonists, a full military brigade, terraforming equipment, and enough firepower to level a mountain. Intelligence reports had described a small research station and some indigenous wildlife. What she found when the fleet dropped out of hyperspace was a fully integrated civilization. The planet's surface showed clear signs of advanced development. Geometric agricultural patterns that combined human efficiency with alien environmental harmony. Power signatures indicating technology that was familiar yet somehow improved. And, most disturbing of all, organized defensive positions that showed clear strategic planning. Admiral, reported Commander Zhang from the communication station. We're receiving a transmission. It's coming from the original research station coordinates. The hologram that appeared on the bridge showed Marcus Chun, but he looked nothing like the frightened castaway from the original rescue reports. He stood confidently in what appeared to be a command center, wearing clothing that combined human materials with alien design elements. Behind him, barely visible in the background, moved figures that were clearly not human. Admiral Wells, Marcus began, his voice calm but firm. I am Marcus Chun, speaking as elected representative of the Kepler 442b integrated community. I understand you've come here under the assumption that this world is available for human colonization. I need to inform you that this planet is already inhabited by an intelligent species, and that any attempt at forced colonization will be met with resistance. Admiral Wells leaned forward, studying the transmission carefully. Dr. Chun, our records show you've been missing for over 5 years. Are you speaking under duress? Marcus smiled, and Admiral Wells was surprised to see genuine amusement in his expression. Admiral, I'm speaking as a free citizen of a free world. I'm also speaking as the father of a 4-year-old daughter who was born here, and as pack family to the indigenous people who saved my life and welcomed humanity as partners. Dr. Chun, while I appreciate the work you've done with the local fauna, Earth's colonial authority supersedes any informal arrangements you may have made. We're prepared to relocate the indigenous populations to protected reserves while human settlement proceeds. The change in Marcus's expression was subtle but unmistakable. His smile disappeared, replaced by something Admiral Wells recognized from her military experience. The look of a man preparing for war. Admiral, the Kithrans are not fauna to be relocated. They are people with rights, territory, and the absolute determination to defend their world. More importantly, they are not alone. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in silence. Admiral, came a voice from the tactical station. We're detecting multiple energy signatures rising from the planet's surface. Defensive installations positioned at strategic points around the main settlement. Admiral Wells studied the tactical display, her unease growing. The defensive positions were sophisticated, showing clear understanding of both human technology and optimal placement for planetary defense. This wasn't a primitive species with simple weapons. This was an organized military response. Launch reconnaissance drones, she ordered. I want detailed scans of those positions. And see if you can establish communication with other members of the research team. The drone footage revealed the extent of the settlement's transformation. What had been a small research station was now a thriving city that seamlessly blended human architecture with structures that were clearly alien in design. The defensive installations were a hybrid of human energy weapons and something else, technology that the fleet's computers couldn't fully analyze. But it was the footage of the settlement's inhabitants that truly stunned the bridge crew. Humans and aliens moved together naturally, working side by side on clearly shared projects. Human children played with alien young. Mixed groups gathered around what appeared to be schools and meeting halls. My God, whispered Commander Zhang. It's not a research station anymore. It's a civilization. Admiral Wells made her decision. Prepare a landing party. Full diplomatic protocols, but with military support. We're going down to talk to them directly. The meeting took place in the settlement's central grove, the natural amphitheater where the community held its democratic assemblies. Admiral Wells brought a full diplomatic team and a squad of Marines. Marcus arrived with representatives from all three integrated packs, including Alpha, who despite his age remained an imposing presence. "Admiral," Marcus began, "I'd like you to meet Alpha, leader of the first pack and senior elder of the Kithrin people." Alpha stepped forward, his four eyes studying the Earth delegation with obvious intelligence. When he spoke, his English was careful but clear. "Welcome to our world, Sky Pack leader. Uncle Death has told us much about Earth people. We hope for peaceful talking." Admiral Wells struggled to hide her shock. The alien's speech was clearly sophisticated, and his bearing was unmistakably that of a diplomatic leader. This wasn't some uplifted animal. This was a person representing his people in a formal negotiation. "Thank you," she replied carefully. "I came here expecting to establish a human colony. Dr. Chen tells me this world already belongs to your people." Alpha made a sound that Marcus translated as acknowledgement mixed with amusement. "This world belongs to itself. We are part of it. You may be part of it too, if you choose Pack Way instead of Conquer Way." The negotiations that followed lasted 3 days. Admiral Wells found herself dealing with something unprecedented in human colonial experience, a truly alien civilization that was willing to share, but not surrender. The Kithrins offered to welcome human settlers, but as equals and partners, not as conquerors. They would share their knowledge of the planet, their environmental management techniques, and their advanced understanding of sustainable development. In return, humans would share their technology, their knowledge of other worlds, and their different perspectives on problem solving. But they would not be relocated. They would not surrender their territory. And they would not accept human dominance. "Admiral," Marcus said during a private meeting on the second day, "you have a choice here that could change everything. Not just for this world, but for how humanity explores the galaxy." "Dr. Chen, I have my orders. Earth needs this world's resources, and we have 10,000 colonists who need homes. The Kithrins are offering homes to all of them. Real homes, as part of a community that's already proven this can work. Look around you. Human children are learning to hunt alongside alien cubs. Our scientists are developing medicine that combines human technology with Kithrin biological knowledge. We're creating something that's never existed before." Admiral Wells toured the settlement that evening, accompanied by Alpha and several other pack leaders. She saw human engineers working with Kithrin environmentalists to design structures that enhanced rather than disrupted local ecosystems. She watched human teachers learning from Kithrin elders how to help children develop both intellectual and emotional intelligence. She observed hybrid medical facilities where human doctors and Kithrin healers shared knowledge that benefited both species. But it was in the settlement school that she truly understood what was at stake. Her guide was a 7-year-old human boy named David who spoke fluent pack speech and had been adopted into a Kithrin family after his parents died in an accident. David introduced her to his pack brothers, young Kithrins who treated the human child as family. Together, they showed Admiral Wells their joint project, a detailed map of the planet's ecosystem that combined human satellite imaging with Kithrin traditional knowledge. "We're learning about everything together," David explained proudly. "My pack mom says that 2 kinds of thinking are always better than 1 kind." That night, Admiral Wells made a decision that would alter the course of human expansion forever. She opened a direct channel to Earth Command. "This is Admiral Wells reporting from Kepler, 442b. I am recommending immediate reclassification of this mission from colonial expansion to diplomatic first contact." The response from Earth was predictably harsh. Earth Command demanded that she proceed with the original mission parameters. The Colonial Committee insisted that human interests took priority over alien claims. Admiral Wells listened to their demands, then made her own choice. "Earth Command, I am invoking Colonial Regulation 7.3, Prevention of Genocide. The forced relocation of an intelligent species constitutes a violation of human ethical law. Furthermore, I am declaring this mission a success. We have established peaceful relations with an alien species, and created a template for cooperative colonization that serves human interests better than conquest ever could. She turned to Marcus, Alpha, and the assembled representatives of both species. Admiral Wells requesting permission to establish formal diplomatic relations between Earth and the Kithrin people with the integrated community of Kepler 442b serving as our embassy. Alpha made the harmonized sound that meant joy, approval, and welcome home. Around the grove, humans and Kithrins joined their voices in a celebration that could be heard across the settlement. 3 months later, the first wave of new settlers arrived to join the integrated community. They came not as conquerors, but as immigrants, ready to learn a new way of living that honored both human innovation and Kithrin wisdom. Marcus stood in the same spot where his escape pod had crashed 8 years earlier, watching his daughter Sarah play with her pack siblings in the purple grass. Emily stood beside him, their second child growing in her belly, the first human baby to be born as a full citizen of an integrated world. "Do you think it will work?" Emily asked, watching the newest arrivals being welcomed by mixed human Kithrin greeting committees. Marcus smiled, remembering the terrified, bleeding man who had once crawled out of a wrecked escape pod to face certain death rather than abandon a friend. "Alpha taught me something about humanity that we'd forgotten," he said. "We're pack hunters too. We're strongest when we're protecting something together." In the distance, Alpha's great-grandcubs played with human children who had never known a world where the two species weren't family. They spoke both languages natively, understood both cultures instinctively, and carried within themselves the future of interspecies cooperation. Earth had sent a colonial fleet to conquer a world. Instead, they had discovered a new way to be human. And in the growing twilight of an alien world that had become home, Uncle Death watched over cubs of two species, all of them learning that the greatest strength came not from dominance, but from the willingness to stand together when everything was on the line. The pack had grown, and the pack would endure.